Let's turn that down a little bit there. Actually, let's turn it down on my thing. What's up, everyone? Yes, this music is perfect for some coffee. I just had a Oreo frappe from my local coffee shop. It was amazing. And just now I was scarfing down dinner. So that's just the life of me and probably most esports coaches. Not a ton of time. Not a ton of time. How's everyone doing? It's been, man, if I could sum up like all of this, all of today in Scholastic Esports in one thing, it would just be like a general sigh. My hair is very indicative of what Scholastic Esports has felt like the last day or two. But yeah. Oh. Who's still going? Whose seasons are still going? Who's got teams in playoffs? Minnesota Varsity League halfways through. You guys are only halfway through? It's a well scheduled season. CCL still. Yes, there we go. I do get from a high school perspective and like everyone kind of on a similar schedule at the state level. I guess it makes like you can make things happen. Scheduling national college competition, especially in the spring, is so difficult because people are finishing up by like May 1st. So we're trying to have everything wrapped up by then. Seasons are short in the spring. We were just NACE Competition Council just started their conversations about next year's schedules today. That was it's a lot. It's a lot. There you go. Chris is in chat. Chris knows what's up. Oh, I like that. I like that emote. Do you guys have a student make your guys' emotes? I love how your whatever they're called, the identifiers is just Canada. That's amazing. Thank you, Logan, for the follow. I appreciate you. Oh, man. Write-ins this week, maybe? Write-ins. This week, maybe. What do you mean write-ins? Write-ins. Let's see what else here. I gotta bring up I'm gonna check, make sure my screen sharing is set up correctly. Because we are going to be watching, or we're gonna be looking at some of this stuff. For those of you who have been following me on Twitter, just know that NECC escaped this week because of all the PlayVS stuff, but they have not been forgotten. Look at my hair. My hair is crazy. I need a haircut, all right? But I haven't found like a barber or a stylist that I feel confident with in Florida. For C-Lol. Oh, I already swapped it. Look at that. Let's swap back. For C-Lol, yeah, we're supposed to know who's getting at-large bids for C-Lol this week. I think it's this week. That'll be interesting. How many of the at-large bids will be coming from the North Conference? My guess is a good chunk. Although I think we'll see some. I think we'll see at least a couple, maybe one out of the South. Probably one out of the East, maybe. I'm really interested. It's the 14th, I think. Oh, so like 2 days. Full Metal Fleece, welcome. So 2 days until we find out at-large bids, potentially. That'd be sweet. Let's pull down let's pull down that chat just a little bit. I'm sad I didn't get to be on the selection committee this year, but unfortunately my team this year was too good. We're actually a potential to get a right in, although I think it's a long shot. But we finished second in our conference, so we are on that list of potentials. Just looking at two of our players' ranks, and we're coming from a partner conference that isn't necessarily very strong. Getting a at-large bid for us would be a long shot, unfortunately. Converse joined our partner conference and forever changed the tides of history. But next year, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm sad I miss out on the selection committee because I loved that last year. It was fun. It was fun being involved in that. Like we had Fletch. We had even one of my students at Aquinas was on there. We had obviously OPTSM fan. Sean. I mean, they're just so knowledgeable. It's crazy to me how much they know about college League of Legends. Do you see them writing in many partner conference schools? I doubt it. I really doubt it. I don't know if there's even a partner conference that would get an at-large bid. I think the only possible option, if I'm recalling correctly, I'd have to look at it again, but the one where Columbia College is in, they might have gotten a write-in. That conference might have gotten a write-in if their entire team didn't quit last fall. I think it's Bay State and Columbia College are in the same conference there. Ottawa from MEC. Okay. Interesting. I don't know where who else is in that conference. Did Grandview win and then Ottawa was second? As much as I rag on, or used to rag on CLOL, but rag on Riot for stuff, like I really like what Tiza and the team have done with CLOL. Honestly, for me and my experience, like the partner conference, playing in partner conference is amazing. I love it. Like, I'm not like a super hyper fan of the partner conference I'm in, but the overall partner conference experience in CLOL, I've really enjoyed. I get a full season no matter what. Like, even if we end up with 2 losses, we're still competing, which is really exciting. And we have that full season. Oh yeah. So Grandview is the other. So Grandview, Ottawa. I don't know what Ottawa's team even looks like, to be honest. But just knowing who's in the North and doing my research in the South, like there's some freaking strong teams in those conferences. But this might be the first year that I like really follow the national tournament. I guess I fairly closely followed it last year because I was doing like weekly talk shows with Checkpoint XP on campus, and me and Erica were doing updates every week on it. But I think this year might be the one I truly watch some stuff, and it should be cool. I think it's really cool watching some of these national leagues year after year and how much stronger they get. I mean, when I started at Aquinas, like even like CRL, like the average rank you'd need to be to make CRL was so drastically lower than what it is currently, if I recall correctly. So that's just super exciting. Yeah. Whew. All right. Should we intro this and start some discussion? I think so. Welcome everybody to the Collegiate Esports Talk Show. I'm your host, Coach Antor, and today we are talking about the multiple articles at this point to come out about PlayVS. First from the Washington Post, and then second an article about alleged harassment from Jacob Wolf's report or newsletter, which just came out this afternoon. So this is going to be exciting. Good talk, good discussion. Ground rules. We're keeping this civil. We're keeping this as accurate as possible. I am not the journalist who did all this research. I am not involved in any of this situation, so do not take anything that I say as the final and end all and factual everything, but I'm going to refrain as best as I can from jumping to conclusions or saying things that I do not know to be accurate as per some of these articles. And that goes for everybody in chat. I think what's really valuable about these discussions is for all of us to kind of go off of each other, to work on finding solutions or to identify the proper problem, and to kind of solidify our arguments, if that makes sense. So without further ado, let's pull up this Washington Post article, shall we? Would love any discussion or thoughts as we go through this. But should be fun. If my thing would transition, there we go. Why is there a loading thing in the middle of that? I don't know. Why would there be a loading? We're just gonna mess around with this until we find face cam. Nope, not that one. Nope, not that one. Oh, there we go. All right. Boom. All right. So yesterday, a reporter from the Washington Post, Teddy, I'm not even going to try to pronounce their last name, released a article about PlayVS. And that article, really interesting, covered some pretty in-depth reporting, which I was really impressed by. I think Teddy did a pretty good job at getting facts and kind of both sides, or at least quotes from both sides, where other past articles have failed to do that. And I thought it was a pretty good article. I mean, in terms of like how it was written. We'll just kind of skim through this a little bit. It basically talks about what is this link to? Just their website. Yeah. Talks about the emails, that were sent out to the state leagues. So kind of to keep everyone up to date on this stuff. The response from Delane and PlayVS, Delane is the CEO of PlayVS, has been basically the person who sent these emails did so without permission from the higher ups at PlayVS, that they were kind of acting on their own. I think that's semi-believable, if I'm being honest with myself. I think who might have emailed them was somebody who is in charge of building up their state, or building up the state organizations and the amount of high schools. And one strategy that they thought would be successful was to try to end the nonprofits operating in their region that they were in charge of. But Masta does make up a good point that the email, the exception to that was an email directly from Delane to HSCL, which is another for-profit entity in the space. And that basically was a separate email from the conservatively written form email that was sent to the nonprofits. That one was very much more of a stopper. I'm sending over the lawyers on the same day. That is also true. But I also want to be, I mean, yes, one could probably draw the conclusion that it was all orchestrated from one individual, but that has been the answer thus far from PlayVS, which to an extent could be semi-believable if one were to just base things off of the facts. But I agree. There's something sus there. We talked about all this on a past episode. You can go watch the YouTube VOD if you want about PlayVS. I think I even like edited out the full episode and made a smaller video for anyone to peruse if they would like. But basically this article starts off with just a recap of what that was. So yada yada yada. What is added to this article that wasn't before a spokesman was kind of some quotes from PlayVS. A spokesperson for PlayVS emailed the Post Monday clarifying that in an email there was a slash which was meant to be read as an or rather than an and. PlayVS never claimed exclusive status with Nintendo. Interesting. Do we have the email here? Nope, that's the email to I'm just gonna pull up. I've got all sorts of stuff here. I'm just gonna pull up. I think he put it out here. Yeah, so operating Mario Kart, Overwatch, and Super Smash Brothers. These are three that we reserve official exclusive rights. PlayVS says never claimed exclusive status with Nintendo. Interesting. Okay. Interesting. So that's questionable. Questionable. Several instances misrepresented its standing. PlayVS is also inaccurately stated on its website as the only place to play esports at the varsity level. Varsity status for any program is decided at a local level by the school. I think I don't know if the college space or the high school space has figured out what the term varsity means and who gets to use that term. I don't even know what the origins of the term varsity is. So, I think you very well could make an argument that in PlayVS definition of varsity, they're the only ones. I don't know if this is the case. I think in some definitions of varsity, that is the case. I don't honestly, like I said, I don't know what the term varsity actually means, especially in esports. And I don't know what school administrators they talk to. But yeah, just keep that in mind too, is like varsity is a term that no one really knows. But they're definitely not the only place to play. I mean, players can play by themselves, but at the varsity level, yeah, it's just, I don't know. I think that a lot of this, there's plays with words that I think just different people have different definitions of the words. So I think that's important whenever I'm arguing with someone or trying to understand someone else's perspective. A lot of times if it's someone I respect or know they're competent at what they do, a lot of times the argument stems in a difference in definition of a word that's being used. So oftentimes it's just stepping back and like, hey, all right, you're talking about this way, and I'm thinking about this way. Can we like establish the common definition there? And that can solve actually a lot of arguments and disagreements in the space. But this one, I think the word varsity is just very questionable. Never misrepresented or mismarketed. So there's some talk going around that PlayVS uses certain numbers to quantify how many students are playing in their competitions, of which the public can't verify. And looking at some of these numbers, they look a little far-fetched, and that was the argument that was presented here about misrepresenting or mismarketing its partnerships. And one of those was also the fact of a Fortnite competition last year, where like a lot of non-students were competing, and people who weren't students came out and said like, yeah, I competed in that. So the numbers that are being represented to publishers might be way off, and that is giving a false sense of positive experience or a positive outlook on what's happening in the high school space. Yeah, old man Henson says lol, zero verification. Yes, I think Delane in his I did watch the Delane report from last week in response to Jacob Wolf's initial first story. He brings up the fact that Fortnite or Epic knew that the players competing were between the age or were under the age of 19 or 19 and below, which I think is a good point. But there was no further verification on student enrollment. And I think that's where the problem might lie there. I don't know if Delane can truly paint a very wrong picture to publishers, because publishers know, they know who's playing their games. So there is there is a decent argument by Delane there when he talks about like PlayVS can't misrepresent their information. I would say that they misrepresent their information or make it look a lot prettier than it is in the public. I don't know what the conversation looks like with publishers per se. And I think another thing that is often not talked about is, I believe, this one might not be accurate, but I believe Riot is a investor in PlayVS. So Riot is actually part owner of the company of PlayVS, and I don't think people often talk about that. I'm going to actually just look that up, because I'm pretty sure that's accurate. A student can member of PlayVS. F. Corin says a student can sign up for PlayVS without having the school even aware of it. Then the school is put on the website as a me. Yeah, that is true. And that actually happens in some other leagues as well. And most of those leagues are questionable. I can't find it on Google, but I'm fairly certain Riot owns a percentage of PlayVS. If anyone can verify that, would love to see that. A main source of frustration for some educators stems from licensing agreements. Yeah, this is the stem of the argument. So here's the deal. PlayVS, if PlayVS wasn't going after and exercising their exclusive deals, no one would be half as angry with them. Like half as angry. The problem with most educators in their stance on this topic is that they have these exclusive leagues with these games and are exercising that by threatening legal action to the nonprofits. And I don't know if this will ever be solved without an actual legal challenge. Okay, so it is Tencent. So Tencent actually does have an ownership stake in PlayVS. I don't know how much did they raise. Does it say? I think. I don't know. Man, I can't find it anywhere. Maybe I'm wrong. It's gotta be in here. I swear that's somewhere. Might be Tencent, not Riot. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure there's a part ownership there somewhere, and that complicates things. Oh, Interesting. That's interesting. F. Corn says, good to know. I know several who had to have lawyers contact PlayVS to get their school removed from the list. That's interesting. We actually saw that same practice in the NCCA. Go check out that video on my YouTube if you want to know more, where they were just they had a free open tournament, and then club teams could join, and then if they joined and played, they were listed on the website as affiliate members of the NCCA. Yeah, messed up business practice. Main source of frustration. We talked about this. Publishers hold the rights to these titles and can dictate how their games are played. This is true. Until some type of legal challenge makes it different. This is extremely true. And I think we've talked about this in the PlayVS episode before, is like, sometimes these publishers just want one company that handles all of their high school space. And in the case of PlayVS, that was like their answer to it. It's like, oh, you mean PlayVS will either pay us or there's no money exchange whatsoever, and they'll handle all of high school competition for X. According to Delane last year for Fortnite, they say Epic paid them to do all the high school stuff, which is interesting. I'm not saying that's inaccurate. I've seen or heard of deals similar to that with other publishers. So, but that's an important distinction here. And I think that's one of the reasons why the ISEA has been formed with all the nonprofits together, is now there's an answer. Hopefully that gets up and running faster, or fast enough where these publishers can look at them as a valid option moving forward. And while PlayVS does not hold exclusive rights to Activision Blizzard and Nintendo games, it is the exclusive high school provider for the League of Legends. Now, this sentence is a little misleading because so if we look at, this is the email that the author Teddy sent to Activision Blizzard, and Activision Blizzard answered these questions. Old Man Henson says, did this just all start off a case of high school associations not knowing what they were doing, so they saw PlayVS as an easy out with reading the fine print? To an extent. I mean, PlayVS came to some of these state organizations, and still do, these high school state orgs, and say, hey, we'll provide everything you need for esports. Like, you're an old person running athletics, you don't even think this is a real sport. Let us handle it. We'll take care of it. And that's what's kind of that's kind of PlayVS's that was their play. It came off of their partnership with NFHS, or at least the broadcasting arm of NFHS. And that's how they've been kind of growing that momentum, or they've been riding the momentum of that, and have signed on with some state orgs. Some of those state orgs are now not renewing contracts. But that's kind of where they started. And then once they get into a state, they start going to school districts, and saying the same thing. It's like, hey, we'll handle everything. We've got a website. We'll run the leagues. We'll do everything for you. Here's the price. So that's kind of how that's happening. But back to this thing about the article. I'm going to be critical of the article just as much as I'm critical of PlayVS to an extent here. It says, and while PlayVS did not hold exclusive rights to Activision Blizzard, if we look at what Activision Blizzard says, yes, PlayVS is the only organizer that has applied for a custom license. We are working with PlayVS to build out the officially sanctioned varsity competitions. Again, why do people... I'm starting to grow on this, like, I hate the word varsity. Verso says, yeah, that's a huge piece of this. To a layman, they look great. I would agree. To somebody who's not involved in the high school scene in terms of esports, they look like they're one-stop shop. But yeah, so this is Activision Blizzard's answer to some of these emails. All other competitions must be open, youth, recreational, club offerings similar to what you might see offered in traditional sports like Pop Warner or a local. Any organizer may submit a custom license application via our website if they wish to organize their own recreational open competitions. So from my perspective, like from the definition of Activision Blizzard, their email, it does look like, to me, like from my definition and my perspective, that they do own exclusive rights to Activision Blizzard. when it comes to varsity competition or school to school competition. Like, that's how I read this. So I think this statement here is, while PlayVS does not hold exclusive rights, I think they don't own exclusive rights, but they do own like all the rights to varsity competition. And I think that's, again, where the definitions of certain things are leading to a confusion and some heated arguments on both sides. So I think it's really important for everyone to kind of do their own research in this before really taking a stance. But I'm not saying that what came out of the article or what Delane has said, it gets him off the hook, because he's been back and forth and skating around questions like from day one. So that's also to keep in mind there. PlayVS has expressed interest in working with these same organizers and collaborating on the officially blah 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 and state sanctioned activities. This is a stretch. PlayVS, this, yes, legally you could probably say PlayVS has expressed interest, because in the cease and desist email they sent, we understand how this change might impact your community, and truthfully, it's not our intention to put you in a challenging situation. This is from PlayVS. We respect your work as an educator and share your mission. If you're interested, we'd be happy to migrate competition onto the PlayVS platform and extend free participation into our spring season to your community. This is not working with. This is requiring teams to move onto your platform so then you can charge them the next semester. That is not working with. Now, PlayVS will say, "Oh, sure, it's working with. We're offering free competition to come on over." That's not working with. Working with is a collaboration. It's listening to their feedback and compromising. This is not that. So that is BS, in my opinion. Collaborating on the officially NFHS and state sanctioned activities. It's this sounds a little, well, this is like legal mumbo jumbo, but if this was not like a reporter asking and you were just like getting information from the Blizzard person and this is what they said, I'd be like, that's tone deaf. That is the Shimi says that is you have to join us or else mentality. It is, and it's not working with. I think honestly at the end of the day, like, if there was somebody at PlayVS who truly wanted to work with the nonprofits and like figure out the best thing for the whole space and be successful with everyone, because I think there's truly enough space for everyone to be involved here, we'd be in a different situation. We'd be talking about different things. But right now we have a company that's so focused on figuring out how to make this profitable. I mean, they're blowing through cash, guys. PlayVS is blowing through cash. Just telling you. Like, I've never seen financials, haven't heard anything, but they're blowing through cash. I mean, they have 100 employees at this point. And the only high school teams that I know of who've participated in that I've talked to got free, or they got their first year for $1 and then didn't renew. So that's not how you turn a profit. I will say that, like, I know a big school district down here signed with PlayVS this year. They're probably paying a pretty penny. They're an affluent school district with a lot of high schools. That's that. I don't have a problem with that. Like, as long as the school district is paying for it or the school's paying for it and not students, like, I'm not begging for change. I'm gonna be real with you. But again, not every school can do that. And in a lot of cases, the student ends up being put on the hook for that. And that's where I have problems. Did PlayVS pay Activision Blizzard to have exclusive access? No, is paying for a license. Wait, what? Did PlayVS pay Activision Blizzard to have exclusive access? No, PlayVS is paying for a license to leverage IP. This is similar to any other. What? This might be another problem of like this might be another problem of different definitions. I don't know what they read in here that says no to have exclusive access. No, they paid for it. So they didn't pay to have exclusive access. They paid to license Blizzard products to fit in their business. That's weird. Okay. Even at 100 plays, 100 million goes a long way. Yeah, unless if your CEO is making, or your top level employees are making a good chunk of change. $100 million can be spent pretty quick, depending on what you are doing with it. It can go a long way, or it couldn't. It's just something to keep in mind. Full Metal Flea says they are making acquisitions. Other than that, I don't know who they are spending so much money. Virginia high schools are under PlayVS also. Yeah. I haven't heard of any acquisitions per se. Corn put the terms of service from the community guidelines of League of Legends. It may not be sponsored or sanctioned by an esports governing body. Yeah. Yes, that is true. They basically allow PlayVS to do it. That's about it. In terms of large scale stuff. They did allow Naystar League to do JV competition the last couple years, or at least CSL, and then Naystar League this year. Yeah. That's interesting. Just looking at this. It looks like they approached Chris Aviles from Garden State to come on, and Aviles said no. Some good quotes from educators. Love it. Yada, yada, yada. Handle scheduling. I think what's interesting is watching students reply on some of these. And it's like, you say you're the best platform, but every experience I had with competing in your leagues is trash. Those are always interesting to see. I didn't like the PlayVS platform. I did it at the high school and college level. It wasn't that great. This was like where I got mad. So, Parnell Delane says PlayVS has signed licensing agreements with developers to exclusively provide their league format. Season-long competitions, starting with preseason matches and ending with playoffs in state and national championships. Which is the same model for like all of athletics. And he believes that some nonprofit orgs have simply replicated that model despite his company's agreements with publishers. We were the first to introduce that model. We created a real structured program and format in how we wanted to operate. Everyone borrowed from that. That is such baloney. Like, that is such BS. The high schools were doing this before you were. So you borrowed it from the colleges. Like, this is, oh my gosh. This whole line is just a steaming pile of garbo. We consider that unique to PlayVS. Oh yeah, you consider having a season and a national championship to be unique to PlayVS? We did the same thing. We competed in HSCL before PlayVS was a thing with the same format. No, bro. This is the most egregious thing in the whole article, is what Verso says. I agree. Says, bro said he invented esports tournaments. It's true, man. That's what he's saying. He's trying to claim that he invited the concept of competitive league. Yeah, he's trying to claim that he invented the concept of a competitive league in esports, and that's just not true. Now, I'd be interested, like, is this what's in the agreement? Is like, you have the exclusive format for this because the state nonprofit leagues don't do a national championship. So could they in effect get a licensing agreement that doesn't have a national championship? I don't know. Probably not. I think that's probably like a small thing, but I mean, the state leagues are not borrowing the model with a national championship. They're also not borrowing the model of preseason matches. Most high school leagues don't have preseason matches, to my knowledge. So all they're doing is a season-long competition with playoffs and a state finals. I I don't know. Just something to think about. Currently, it charges $64 per player for each regular season. The company plans to raise the prices in the fall. Oh, was interesting. Reading this article and then being like, oh, it looks like they're actually upping this to $80 per person next year. But if you enroll by July 31st, you can keep this year's pricing. I thought it was interesting. Title IX schools. So your Title IX schools get a $400 per year discount. Title I schools are schools with a pretty high rate of students on like free and reduced lunches. I don't know much about the Title I program in terms of who qualifies and stuff, but it's lower income schools. And when we talk about lower income schools, we're talking about schools that do not have any extra money sitting around and would scoff at the idea of adding esports if it costs $2,000. And I think that's kind of crazy. And then all girls schools get a 30% discount. I kind of like that. Special Olympics schools free, because I believe Special Olympics probably pays PlayVS for that contract, but oh man. Full Metal, all this smells like his investors breathing down their neck for returns. I've heard instances where the investors don't really care about their money, to be honest. So I don't know if it's that necessarily. But what I could tell you is that like when the investor money's gone, everything's gone. So that includes Delane's salary and potential cash out money if they were to sell at some point. So there is a financial incentive for PlayVS to succeed outside of just investors. So I think it's important to realize. I think from what I've been told is the investors aren't expecting the money back or aren't breathing down his neck necessarily, but the money isn't just gonna keep flowing. I think that's probably an important thing about this. Just a guess. Like I said, I don't have any insider information. I haven't talked to these people. I don't know what's going on, but just to be aware of that. And these articles do not increase the value of your company. So especially if you were trying to sell at some point, like these articles and these accusations do not increase the value of your company. Talk about the expense. This person from Illinois High School Association, Iowa. And that's kind of basically it. I think what was more interesting than the article was the back and forth between some of the reporters and Delane, which I'm going to walk through some of this stuff. Declan is a reporter for Dexerto, pretty active in the esports community. I believe he's done an article about PlayVS in the past. He retweeted Teddy's post about the article. Delane responds, "This is cute, but knows we have an exclusive deal with Activision. They told him and will correct it in the Delane report." This is the meme show that Delane does in response to articles. When I say meme, like he literally uses memes throughout the whole thing. It's not me saying like exclusive that it's a meme. I'm just saying they use meme stuff throughout the whole thing. And the first one was almost laughable on some of the stuff he was trying to correct Jacob Wolf on. Separately, we've never said we had an exclusive with Nintendo, but we do have an official deal, and and are their only licensed partner. He knows that too. Not saying anything about that's inaccurate. How about you show the first email where they explicitly told you we had an exclusive partnership? Oh, I forgot. Yeah, this is. I've found out that reporters do not like being accused of clickbait, especially because clickbait does not require like actual work to create. Whereas like some of this is fact checking, interviews, writing. Excuse me. Not a good look. So here, this must be a screenshot from their deal with Activision, official exclusive partner for Varsity High School Esports. Or no, this is from Activision Blizzard for Varsity High School Overwatch and Hearthstone Season Play, and the official exclusive platform for Varsity Middle School Hearthstone Season Play. This is interesting that middle school is only Hearthstone. I'm assuming because Overwatch has some violence to it. But again, varsity is a term that everyone's using, but no one has the same definition of. For right now, it's basically like any school to school competition. Is what the definition is in the high school space. In the varsity space, it's oftentimes used as like a program against program of like officially organized and supported teams at the college level. Verso says, I really wonder what they have tied up in paying the devs for the exclusivity. With some of these devs, they're not even paying. I think, like with Activision Blizzard, I think Delane says, I believe, that they don't pay or get paid. I guess it actually does say with Activision Blizzard they are paying for a license. I wonder what that is. I don't know. For the sake of PlayVS, I hope it's not a lot, because Overwatch, you know. But yeah, there's just a lot of back and forth here. People say anything. How could I have lied in an email when we have the same rights we say we have? I think there's just some communication. There's some miss on the communication here. Where's the other stuff? Here's the email. At some point, where is this? Oh, I gotta find this. Where did I put this? Because he put in a GIF that's like, get your editor on the line, and then like I thought it was like 15 minutes later, the editor of get your editor on the line with this little photo, and then like an hour later, it's this GIF waiting for a response. I think, and then the editor, this guy's editor, like tweeted out about the story. And was like, yeah, no, this is what's happening. I don't know what you're trying to say. So let's jump. Okay, that all happened. That's exciting. Let's jump to today's latest article that was published this afternoon from Jacob Wolf's The Jacob Wolf Report. Oh, which is a play on, I get it. Jacob Wolf Report is what it was named, and then Delane made his own story or show, the Delane Report. And this episode is now called the Antor Report. So, welcome to the Antor Report. Oh boy! All right, so today, 2 hours ago, former employee sues PlayVS for alleged pregnancy discrimination, wrongful termination. It just keeps coming. Like, holy crap. How much negative press can you take? And what I think was so interesting. All right, so like an hour before that goes out, I think Delane might still have it up. So an hour before that comes out, Delane posts, yesterday I was reminded of how Evan focused on creating more value for Snap than wasting time responding to every negative PR mentioned comment. So while I'm sure more negative chatter will surface, my time will be spent exclusively on building onward. We have more to do. Also, shout out to the PlayVS team, partners, and community. Your priorities and needs are all that matters to me. Grateful to be on this journey together. PlayVS team, your priorities and needs are all that matters to me? Hour later. Boom. Alleged pregnancy discrimination, wrongful termination. According to the LA County Superior Court complaint, the former QA analyst claims she was fired the day she returned from pregnancy leave. Basically, the gist, the former employee, Rachel Waynick, apologies if I'm getting this incorrectly, Wainick told her manager about her pregnancy on June 10th of last year, and the company placed her on the performance improvement plan on June 11th. So what this probably is, this performance plan is basically a way to document an employee who isn't performing well and probably from an HR perspective, give them feedback on how they could do better. Wainick then complained to HR, who she claims dismissed her concerns and set unattainable goals for her PIP. Wainick says that after her complaint to HR, she received unfair treatment and hostility in the workplace. In retaliation for complaining about the illegal conduct, plaintiff was subjected to heightened scrutiny, unfairly reprimanded and criticized, subjected to undesirable work conditions, and terminated. Wainick's doctor placed her on early pregnancy leave from July 23rd to August 16th due to pregnancy complications and workplace-related stress. And then when she returned to work on August 17th, she says she found herself locked out of her computer, and later in the day, PlayVS terminated her. Dang. Wainick was still pregnant when she was fired, according to several former employees familiar with the situation. That's confusing. I don't know what that means. So she came back before I'm not questioning. I don't know anything about that, but interesting. So she was on some type of maternity leave prior to giving birth, and she returned before giving birth on August 17th when she was fired. So she was still pregnant when she was fired, according to several former employees. Interesting. Wainick alleges PlayVS violated 5 counts of California labor law, including discrimination, retaliation, failure to prevent discrimination, pregnancy discrimination, and a wrongful termination. She worked at PlayVS for 7 months, and both attorneys declined to comment. Ongoing investigation, yada, yada, yada. And then we have a long list of all the controversies of PlayVS. March 30th, Upcomer reported companies' continuous relationships with nonprofits. The Jacob Wolf report with that. Monday, the Washington Post. In response, he denied all allegations and wrongdoing and accused both the Jacob Wolf report and the Post of purposely publishing inaccuracies in order to gain subscribers, which was interesting. Oh boy. First developed the company's business plan in 2017. Yeah. Fascinating. So, yeah. So, PlayVS is being sued for pregnancy discrimination. Now, obviously, this is all alleged. And we'll have to follow the lawsuit as it progresses, but does not look good for Delane here, Mr. Delane. Lugnut says, this article hit home for me. I didn't want to let my employer know I was pregnant until after I signed my new contract because I was worried it would affect it. That's a really good point. I can't even imagine. That's stressful. Old man says his Twitter account got to be the most cringe in existence. Verso says sniffing his own farts type beat. Oh boy. F. Corin says, if you're pregnant, you cannot be fired if you have to go on pregnancy-related leave. It's considered a disability. Here's a link. I don't allow links in my chat, but I appreciate that. If anyone has any questions about that, that's interesting. I don't know much about pregnancy discrimination. Unfortunately, I think I need to do some research. But I'm assuming, this is probably illegal. So this will be interesting. Obviously, PlayVS has to pay for their legal defense, which will be more money to spend. And with this type of lawsuit, I'm assuming won't be cheap or fast. So interested to kind of follow this, see how it goes. But it's another stake in the company that is PlayVS. Really interesting. I saw a lot of tweets about like, hey, we know you're partnered with Blizzard, but this is a bit too far. Which Yeah, that's rough. But I'm a fan of Jacob Wolf. Jacob Wolf, I've met him before. He's worked for ESPN, Upcomer he's still at, and then he's doing his own report or own I don't know if it's daily. I think it's weekly newsletter. And you can check that out on jacobwolf.report. I subscribe to the email, the weekly email for free. I'm debating the paid one. 2 PlayVS articles in 1 week. That's pretty good return for the Scholastic space. Yeah, so there's just a lot. There's a lot going on. What's everyone's thoughts on this so far? Does PlayVS bounce back from this? Do the developers stay in partnerships with PlayVS? Like, what's everyone's thoughts? So thoughts on this stuff. PlayVS is no longer partnered exclusively with Epic. Epic has kind of severed that tie. I think overall, I don't know if anything necessarily caused that specifically to happen. Obviously, there's been some situations where PlayVS might have pushed Fortnite on states that didn't want Fortnite, or schools in states that didn't want Fortnite, and that might have hurt some relationships. But from my perspective and working with NACE and some other organizations, it sounds like Epic is more looking to work with multiple entities in the space. They're not interested in exclusive deals. And I think that's kind of the culture of Epic from top down. I mean, you look at what Tim Sweeney does, what Unreal Engine is about, what Fortnite's about. It's let's get all of our stuff in the hands of creators. Let's get it in the hands of gamers. Let them do what they want to do, because they'll make some crazy stuff. And I'm glad to see that extending to Scholastic tournament organizers. F. Corin says, I don't really care if PlayVS is part of the space, but I just want my students to be able to play games and get scholarships. Money is a major issue because we are a tiny rural school that has no budget for $80 per kid per season. Yeah, absolutely. Full Metal Flea says, my guess why developers make their partnerships in the first place is to avoid PR storms, so take that for what you will. That might be the case. I think a lot of times, when you're just like taking a step back from this space and like trying to look at it from a top down or from a wide angle, I keep going back to the fact that like a lot of these developers don't want to invest resources in building up the Scholastic space. They like, you look at League of Legends, they have CLOL, but that's a pretty tiny team, relatively small investment from Riot. And it's a tiny team doing a ton of work. And the idea to add high school to that would be too much. But do you really want to hire more employees to run that high school space? Probably not. So what do the publishers do instead? They look for an answer to provide competition across the board in a very equal way. How do we as a developer create the opportunity to compete in Minnesota with a company or with a league, and then a student in Florida will have that same experience? How do we do that? We find one company that's operating in Minnesota and Florida, or in multiple states. And in that instance, what these publishers have had in terms of options has been very minimal. It's been HSCL or it's been PlayVS. The nonprofits right now are at the state level. And the idea of managing 50 different state orgs that all have different people, different rules, regulations, different priorities is pretty daunting to a developer. So I see where that's coming from. I'm hoping ISEA is the answer to that from a nonprofit perspective. Because that's been the response from some of the developers I've talked to who are in the Scholastic side of things is, hey, there's not another option right now, or not a better option, if you will. And I think that's, I'm hoping ISEA is the answer to that. We'll see. But I think that's important to realize. Like that's an important distinction to make when you're formulating your thoughts on the space and where it should go, etc. I'm hoping that we come up with another option. Noah the Nexus says too many leagues. I think at the high school level, there's a lot of leagues, but I don't know if there's too many. I think there's too many bad leagues. Like, yes, in an ideal scenario, we only need like 1 or 2 leagues. But not all of them hit everything. You look at, I mean, even PlayVS though only is in a certain amount of states. And then the states they aren't in, do like a regional league. Too many platforms. I agree with that. But when we say too many leagues, like the other option is to have one bad one. I think even in the scholastic or the collegiate space, every league, there's competition right now amongst the leagues. And that's for the attention and money and dollars of schools. And that's creating a lot of fast innovation and growth across all the leagues. And I think it's benefiting the space as a whole. Yes, right now it's very fragmented. There's a lot of confusion on who's the national championship, blah, blah, yada, yada, yada. But every one of these leagues is learning a ton from each other and from their members. And they're very quickly improving. And I think that's a very important piece of this. But at the high school level, when we look at exclusivity, we only have one option. And there's not that competition to better the space and create a better option. I think the competition, there's been some at the state level with the nonprofits, and we quickly realized what the importance and the positives of those nonprofits are. But PlayVS hasn't had to improve. They don't have to improve. I mean, PlayVS is the exclusive partner. They could be the worst experience ever created, but they don't have to improve because they're the only ones who can play. EGF, HSCL, and PlayVS are all having national championships. Yes. But I think that's where you see, I mean, with some of these publishers, they're stepping in or at least PlayVS can and has been threatening some of these cease and desists. I think it's important to realize from a school's perspective that not all of those entities are operating within their licensing agreement or within a licensing agreement at all. Yeah, I'm hoping that, I mean, yeah, from my perspective, when I'm looking at leagues and talking about leagues, especially in the NACE competition counts, in my role there, oftentimes, I mean, I'm pushing for licensing agreements. I don't want my school to be playing in leagues that don't have the proper licensing and agreements or permission from developers. That's not the same. Other teams might not have that same priority, but and that's limited NACE in some perspectives. Is like, why aren't you guys doing a full season of Valorant? Well, because Riot says we have to do it in 2 weeks. But these guys are doing Valorant. Well, they might be operating outside of the licensing agreement. And it's interesting because each developer has a different amount of value put on reinforcing those licensing agreements as well. Like in the high school space, PlayVS is pressuring some of these, or I'm assuming is pressuring some of these publishers to act on these exclusive agreements. And that creates some more pushback and shutting down of leagues. Whereas like some other publishers don't care and they're not going to push it. Full Metal says there's a lack of transparency when it comes to relaying what competitions are licensed and what is not. Yeah, I mean, 100%. Because I think a lot of these leagues don't want what they're doing to be out in the open. Even NACE, like NACE has licensing agreements, but they're not sharing those publicly, which is so fascinating to me. I don't know what is common practice outside of esports with some of this stuff. Like, is that something that would be publicly shared? I don't know. But like, I'm on the competition council. I've never seen a licensing agreement. I just know we have the agreement. And we have to tailor some things around what that agreement says. RSAA in particular should put together a list on their website. That is a great idea. That is a great idea. Tiza, if you're listening, or Karen Ruggles, who's on the board, or I don't know who else is on the board at this point. Chris Aviles is on there. That's a really good piece of advice. I like that. It's like, here are the leagues that can officially run licensed competition outside of the competitive or the community guidelines. It's a good point. I like that. I really like that idea. You like my Minecraft villager? Shoot. I don't know where PlayVS goes from here. I think it's interesting. It'll be telling, like, how much traction does this latest Jacob Wolf report get on social and in the circles of Scholastic Esports people. It could just kind of disappear into the background. Unfortunately, that is a possibility. Unfortunately, most of the schools and districts that PlayVS works with on a daily basis do not interact in the circles that we run in. So yes, from our perspective, Scholastic Esports looks unanimously against PlayVS and everything they do. But that's not the case in the majority of high schools out there. Like, our circle of Scholastic people is so small. And when I talk to some of the districts around me that are in PlayVS, like, they have no idea any of this stuff is going on. They don't know what the other options are. Like, to them, PlayVS is the only option, and they're the answer. Because they're the first, like, PlayVS is the first ones to get to them, basically. But I think that's important to note, is that, yes, a lot of people who are pushing things in Scholastic in certain circles are knowledgeable and passionate about this. But at the end of the day, we're a pretty small circle when we talk about the whole high school ecosystem. And it's another reason why from a business standpoint, it doesn't make much sense for PlayVS to attack these nonprofits and create enemies. Full Metal says, we exist on Twitter. I don't know of any place else these conversations happen. They don't happen in a lot of other circles. Like, outside of some of these EDU esports conversations on Twitter, like, they're not happening. It's just an email from PlayVS saying, hey, we'll take care of all of your esports stuff if you pay us. And that's, like, the only conversation that happens. So yeah, I think that's important to realize or note. Yeah, I don't understand, like, from a PlayVS perspective, like, either ignore the nonprofits and don't send C&Ds, or genuinely try to work with them. Like, genuinely try to work with them. Like, don't force them on your platform, but be like, hey, we'll extend our League of Legends license to you guys next year to compete on your own, and we're not going after you. Bring it to LinkedIn. I think James O'Hagan does a pretty good job at bringing all those to LinkedIn, and there's some conversation there. But again, we're in pretty small circles. What up, Chew from St. Louis University? It's been really exciting. Now, I do have to say that it's been really exciting seeing Chew from St. Louis University, the Maryville squad, like Dan, starting to hop on this Scholastic trade, because they're heavily investing in Scholastic and helping the high school scene. And it's really exciting to see them get fired up about some of this stuff. What up, Gerg? See you at Gateway Legends. I hope. Oh man, I'm supposed to be in Boston for my sister's wedding shower on July 4th. So, Chu says he loves the high school scene so much. I do too. That's where I started. The high school scene is where I started. I loved it. Chu says it's before July 4th. It's the weekend. Oh. I gotta look. No, are you in Boston with me? We're gonna be in Boston for July 4th. Let's see when I'm supposed to be there. I'm supposed to be there, the 1st through the 5th. That whole weekend, I'm supposed to be in Boston. Now, Chu and Girk, if you have a conversation with Dan, and my team were to be invited to said Gateway Legends tournament, I would have to go because that would be work. So, I did tell my team that too, is like, I'm supposed to be in Boston, but if we were to get invited, then I would have to go. It'd be work. I can't take off work, you know? Don't tell my sister. I don't hate you, Chu. I don't hate you. I love you. It's only 8 teams this year. What? Are you You're so full of it. You gotta be. No. You're lying, right? You've got to be lying. You have to be lying. Why would they only do? I'm trying to look for it. Fair St. Louis. I'm being serious. Only 8 teams? What? Why? No. 8 college and 8 high school in one tournament? Are they doing one tournament combined? Because they want to run high school. Yeah, run 16 high school, 16 college. What? I'm confused. What the heck? Oh my gosh. Well, there's no... And they're undercutting Nerd Street. Don't go to Nerd Street. Go to UGC. UGC is in their backyard and would be half the price. Go talk to Chris Postel at Esports Foundry. They host these tournaments for CSMG. Like cutting out Nerd Street. Yeah, cut them out. I heard they're expensive. Fair St. Louis is doing it themselves. So technically they did it themselves last year. Oh my gosh. Ugh. All right. I gotta, there's a BL Goof. First time chatter. Welcome to the show. School districts administrators trust the recommendations made by state athletic associations and the NFHS. Those are the official sanctioned bodies in high school sports. Their input heavily impacts how resources are allocated, and there's decades of history of setting compliance guidelines. If nonprofits want to get official recognition as a school sport, they'll need to support of their state athletic associations and NFHS. Until then, they are club community sport program. Okay. Interesting. Again, I would go back to the question of like who determines what varsity is, because when we were in Michigan, the Michigan High School State Athletic League said no to esports. Like, we're just not doing esports. But then PlayVS went to the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals and partnered with them and said, now we can run a state championship. All while MySEF, the nonprofit, was running their own stuff already. That was way better. I think I'd have to look at the partnership again, but I'm pretty sure the partnership with PlayVS is with NFHS's broadcast arm. It's not even with the real organization. That might have changed since then. But yeah, I think you've got some good points in here. I just don't know how it kind of all fits in. The staff is TOing. Fair St. Louis staff is TOing. Oh, dude. Oh no. Not trying to badmouth, but have not had great experiences with UGC tournaments. I know UGC. I know Matt, the CEO, really well. I think they put on a really good in-person events. That's where I got my start at esports. I did some refereeing with some of their Gears tournaments and their Smash tournaments, and they put on a really good in-person event. Like, they used to be contracted by Microsoft to do some of the official Gears tournaments. Like, I worked Atlantic City for the Halo Classic. I worked at St. Louis's Halo Classic. I worked the Gears event in Vegas that they did for Microsoft and Caesars Entertainment. They do some really good stuff in person. I don't know about their online stuff. because we haven't done them. She says, bro, my Rocket League and Smash state champs are at the St. Louis Science Center. Ooh, I'm so jealous. That's kind of, I don't know if that's cool or not. I don't know what their setup there is. If there's a theater, that's dope. Schools determine which of their teams are varsity. However, select associations have different rules on how a varsity team can participate in club programs. It's in a huge ass auditorium. Oh, that's cool. It'll be fine. BLG goof, big oof. But if you look at PlayVS' current Overwatch offerings, they're not even listing it as a varsity sport versus school sport because it hasn't received sanctioning from the NFHS and state associations yet due to concerns around Overwatch being a shooter. Interesting. Okay. Does the term varsity even really matter? To some people and to some organizations, yes, the term varsity does matter. But no one in esports has the same definition of varsity when they're talking about the word varsity. And I think that's important as well to realize. Probably why there's an issue with Fortnite as well. Yeah, so the issue with Fortnite, from my recollection, was that like a state like Virginia said, no, we will not support Fortnite. It's a shooter, too much questions there. So what PlayVS did instead was go to their Virginia schools and say, hey, we're not doing varsity Fortnite between like as a sanctioned sport in Virginia, but you guys can participate in our Fortnite regional competition. And to the state association, that was like a huge no-no. Like we said no to Fortnite, and PlayVS is like, no, it's just a club fun time. And that created a big rift because parents were frustrated. The state org was frustrated. PlayVS is like, what? We're just trying to make money. So yeah. Wait, delete that. Links still come through, so you're good. I don't see anything. I just see 3 stars. Look at the difference between varsity sports in your state. You have a state association that runs the official league, where there's like one dedicated team that represents a school. There's a lot of others after school club offerings for anybody who doesn't make a varsity team. But like any Joe Schmo can't decide one day they're going to run the varsity football league for Iowa. Again, like, I agree with you, but I think the term varsity has been used so frequently in scholastic esports that no one knows what the true definition of varsity is. And since it's not, I mean, from the state associations, most of them don't recognize esports as a actually sanctioned sport. So they don't care about putting it, they're not going to sanction it as a varsity competition under their organization. But other organizations come in and use the term varsity. We need to differentiate gaming with esports a lot in Scholastic. I agree to that. I agree with that. I think most people in the space are using the term esports correctly. I think for most of us, we're doing a decent job at organizing the esports side, but we're not doing anything on the gaming side of things. People not in esports don't realize there is a difference. That is an important distinction. But they can run a city league or recreational regional community league. Can they run a state recreational league? I don't know. Many definitions of varsity differ from sport to sport and state to state. Can't differentiate it too much. The reality of it, there are a lot of entrenched stakeholders who don't understand that need to be introduced in a language they understand. Yes, they can run a state recreational league. Just call it an open tournament. Interesting. Now, that makes sense. Do the publisher community guidelines fit that? No. Not really. Billy, you are late. It's that different time zone thing. It's fine. Chu always shows up late too. Every time. But don't worry, this VOD will be up on YouTube. You won't even have to watch the whole hour and a half. You can just watch the first 45 minutes. So, I'll have that all edited for you at some point. Don't call you out. Hey, you just like every time you get in here late, you say, hey, so I know exactly when you arrive. It's like if someone like sneaks into the back of class and raises their hand immediately. It's like, oh, I did notice you just walked in. But glad that you're here. So happy. So happy you are here. Why is babe was a questionable term? Thank you, Twitch moderator. Appreciate that. Let me accept the term babe. Your clocks are wrong. Our clocks are wrong. I'm trying to get all my students' CLO paperwork in right now. I started doing... Okay, so I had a little frustration, a little confusion, not frustration. I messaged Tiza because we're on that list because we're eligible for an at-large bid. So because we finished second in our conference. So I kept getting these emails from Tiza and the CLO people of like, hey, please fill out this information and have all your players fill this out. And I was like, okay, there is like almost zero chance that we make this at large bid. Like, it just doesn't make sense. I know the competition that we're up against doesn't make sense. This is going to be a huge waste of time. So I asked Tiza today, and he said there will be time after being awarded the at large to fill it out. So we're waiting. There are 7 slots, Adam. I know there are 7 slots, but there are a lot of very talented teams in the North and South Conference that are very deserving of it. I was on the selection committee last year. I know how it works. Like, there are some really freaking great teams out there that are national playoff ready right now. I don't think we're national playoff ready yet. We're working on it. We're building up our program. We've got 3 Master Plus players coming in next fall that'll complete our Master Plus roster. We've got a challenger, 2 GMs. Like, we're getting there. This year we just weren't ready. Florida Mox to the moon. Hey, I'm all about it. We're not in the South Conference though. We're in the Peach Belt, and we would have had the auto bid if the Peach Belt didn't accept Converse into our conference this year. We beat every other team, went undefeated throughout the season, but then went up against Converse in the championship game, and Converse is just on is a year ahead of us in terms of the talent. Challenger, 2 GMs, no bid. One of those GMs isn't coming till the fall, and the other 2 players who are master do not come until next fall. So we actually have 2 plat players right now, a master, a GM, and a challenger. So why is your mascot a slipper? It's not. It's the water moccasins, which is a highly poisonous water snake. But when I told my mom that was our mascot, the Mox, she did say, like the slipper. And I had the same reaction. So, hoping by some crazy shot UTD gets in. 7 spots is a lot. And I don't think the selection committee is going to give... I don't think they can rightfully, or like, being honest with themselves, give like more than 4 to the top, to the North Conference. So, we'll see. I'm assuming at least 1 will come out of the South. I'm assuming it'll be 3 or 4 out of the North. I'd have to look at again, like, who's in these conferences, but just like remembering who was in the South Conference, I'm assuming at least 1 will come out of there. I think Florida State's a pretty strong team. I mean, you got Winthrop and St. Thomas, who I think are the 2 that got the bids from the South, but there's some really good teams in there. Florida got in already. Okay. Only loss was UST and UCI and UPL. That'd be interesting. I wonder if UTD has a chance. Why are water snakes named after a slipper? That's a good question. I don't know. You're the water animal person. I really liked the video of your, I don't know what they're called, digging fish, sand blowing fish. I don't know. It looked awesome. Chu says, my team keeps asking me if we've been voted in or not, and they're all sweating. I don't know what the North ended up finishing like, but I'm assuming you guys have a pretty good chance. We can take a look at that. We finished our conversation to play versus. Let's talk about the North. Ooh, they kind of changed some of this up. Ooh. Ooh, okay. This kind of looks cool. They changed some of this Battlefy setup here. I'm gonna let's grab this. Like, look at this. This is new. This is very new. All right, so this is the familiar website, but then we go to conferences. This is new. North upcoming matches. I don't know. How do I get? Let's go to past matches. Wow, they changed all of this the week of playoffs. This is an interesting time to change some of this format. Details. Okay, we're getting there. Brackets, conference playoffs. So who didn't make it in? So Maryville, Redbirds, Michigan State, and Bethany made it in. You get 4 out of the North, I think. I think you had 4 out of the North. SLU, Michigan, Minnesota, and Illinois Wesleyan. I think Wesleyan's probably a long shot. SLU only losing 3-2 to Redbirds is huge. Michigan's a good team, but that's not a good result. And then Minnesota. I'm assuming SLU gets that. That doesn't even make sense. Like, if SLU didn't get in, I feel like that's cringe. I've been so busy historically on Tuesdays. I forgot this whole thing. Howdy gamers. What up, K-Bot? We're just talking C-Lol now. So if the top 4 made it in, I don't know how you don't give SLU one. I'm assuming SLU Michigan. This is actually a lot weaker of a North Conference than I thought it would be. That's crazy. I don't know who I was expecting to be in there. But the Illini ended up 4-2. Ohio State 4-2. Mizzou, Indiana. Wow. And 4-2 teams are not eligible. They are not eligible. This is actually crazy to me. Okay, this kind of opens up some possibilities. So SLU, I would assume SLU. I would assume you guys are the team. That's crazy. So we have 7 more slots to fill up and only like 1 or 2 come from the North. Shoot. Well, maybe Florida Southern does have a chance. Maybe I shouldn't be talking. Let's look at the South. The South looked strong earlier. And I think they only get 2. They only get 2. Oh, you said Florida already got in. How did Florida already get in? That doesn't make sense. Florida's this. I have mixed feelings about that. They have 3 slots. So South has 3 slots. So it'd be Texas and Vespa. It's different. Well, they opened up selection committee applications a couple weeks ago. I'm assuming a good chunk is going to be the same. I don't think Vespa is Florida because Gator Lowell is Florida. What is Vespa? Vespa is Virginia Tech. Vespa is Virginia Tech. Yeah, so the applications they happened a couple weeks ago, and I think the final selection for which teams make it is coming out like 2 days, I've been told. So on Thursday. Just name your school with your I think most people do. I think Vespa is probably a different thing because they can't use the logo or name. So they're actually the Virginia Esports Association at Virginia Tech. I don't know if Vespa comes out of that, but whatever. I don't know. I agree. Just name your thing. So Virginia Tech and Longhorn. Those aren't historically strong teams either. And if they have 3, so Vespa made it. Oh my gosh, guys. Where are they going to pull these 7 teams? Too late to... Yeah, I think you're too late to apply, unfortunately. At least this year. Holy cow. Where do they pull these teams from? They need to find 7 teams? All right, who are they pulling? Who do you even pull? That's so many teams. Like York. East might have a couple. So how many spots did East get? So just for everyone's information on this, like the only teams that can get at large bids are ones that made their conference playoffs. So you have to finish 5-1 to get the nod. What's the drama llama ding dong today, boys? Hey, what's up? What up, friend? We talked about PlayVS for like an hour. We talked about Gateway Legends a little bit, which would be really fun. Shoot. Yeah, we've got to talk. Now we're talking about College League of Legends. I'll allow it just because you said it. Oh, it's Harrisburg, West Ontario, and Toronto. So who didn't? Toronto Blue? Wait, U of T Blue and U of T. What's the difference between you? Is this both Toronto? This has got to be a different school. It's got to be a different school. They can't have, you can only have one team per school. So, I'm assuming that whoever this Toronto is, this regular Toronto will probably get the at large bid. Waterloo, York, those are two strong teams. Maybe East gets the most at large bids this year. Thoughts? Questions? Better ideas? They both can't beat Toronto. I know they can't both beat Toronto, but who is... You have University of Toronto, and then you have U of T Blue. Who is that? You're going to make it in? Dude. Now I'm looking at these and knowing there's 7 at-large bids. Maybe we do have a chance to make it in. We only lost to... Converse. Oh, Billy, you're missing out. Missing out. U of T Blue. I don't know who this U of T Blue is. All right, someone confirm. Maybe we found the next big thing is like University of Toronto had 2 teams. Teaser, bring them down. Cannot allow this to happen. Match history, details. Let's look at West. West has got to have some good teams, right? West has got to have some good teams. University of Cali. Did they only get 1 bid or 2? See, I can see USCD and Cal getting at-large bids potentially. I think West might only have 2. Maybe they have 3. Maybe they have 3. I think you could get at-large out of the West. The North looks like the weakest it's been. But I mean, to be fair, you've had a good chunk of teams go into partner conferences, especially from the North Conference. I mean, you think about Columbia College, Aquinas College, of course, went into their partner conference. Bay State's in a partner conference. Converse is in a partner conference. Those aren't North teams, but just saying. Like, you've seen a lot of those, those good, historically good teams swap over to partner conferences. Man, that's crazy. That is crazy. I don't know. CC doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. RIP. They who shall not be named. We have 3 master players, 2 D1s in partner conference. Hope we get a bid. Which school is that, Full Metal? Which school are you from? I don't recognize your username. Ohio Dominion. Or Old Dominion? Old Dominion? ODU. Is it Old Dominion? I think it's Old Dominion. Yeah. How much do I have to F up to get you a quote, a Bible verse at me? Don't let that message through. Dude, all right. You know, you really made me mad if I have to go through and find a Bible verse, because I'm like, this is so ingrained in the culture of Judeo-Christian background and a lot of the Western, a lot of our Western culture that I can pull a quote from the Bible to reinforce my point. AQ is already in. Yes, they are. They ran through the WAC. They got into the WAC. Aquinas is in top 32 team. But Full Metal, you say you've got 3 Masters players and 2 D1s. That might be enough to get you in, to be honest. I mean, I don't know if a lot of times, but it might be. The selection committee last year was very hesitant to pull from the partner conferences because you don't really know how well they are in terms of the team. Hey, we ran WAC. Yeah, Aquinas did. Aquinas ran the WAC. Let me tell you, they ran it. But yeah, they were very skeptical to give at-large bids to partner conferences unless if those teams had competed against schools outside of the partner conferences at some point, because you don't really have a test of how good they really are. So yeah, GMU did get in that. I think GMU is a decently strong team. So I think there's potential there. That'd be good to know. Good to know that there's a team there that's fighting for my spot. For us, we have like a Plat 1 and a Plat 4, and then a Challenger, GM, and a Master. So I think that's kind of a long shot, in my opinion. Like anyone with a Plat player is, at least with 1 Plat player, let alone 2, is probably a very long shot, in my opinion. Unless if you've been playing UPL or something along those lines and got experience against those top teams. This is both the strongest CLOL has been, but the most spots available in a long time. Yes, it is. I think last year at large bids, there were 4 or 5. This year, there's 7. They pulled one of the partner conferences or 2 of the partner conferences bids this year because there wasn't enough teams in those conferences. Top 16 is like all GM plus. Yes. Yeah, there's some good teams. Good teams. Really good teams. League of Legends is college league, man. It's getting spicy. I like it. You got some some schools that have kind of bursted in the scene the last year and a half with League of Legends and have some really talented teams. You look at like St. Thomas, you look at Bay State, you look at Converse to an extent, Winthrop. I mean, these are all teams that are like last year or 2. So hard to recruit for league. I've had the opposite. I mean, Cody at Northwood says the same thing. It's like, it's so hard to recruit for league. I have 1 million Overwatch players and 1 million Rocket League players, but league. And I'm like, all I have is league players. I don't know where everyone else is. Like, I do have quite a few Rocket League recruits, but I have like 0 Overwatch. They're so hard to find. But for talent, like for some reason, I just do really well with like master players. Like I just do really well recruiting those types of players for some reason. I don't know what it is. One of these days we'll finally be in discussions. Yeah, come on, K-Bot. Get Ohio State up there. You've already you manhandled Overwatch League last year. You guys did really well in Overwatch. CRL you make consistently. Noah says not looking in the right places. Okay, show me where to find Overwatch players besides Rockford High School. Let me get Ohio State up there. Come on, K-Bot, you got this. With a campus population your size, I bet you could find a full team of Master Plus players. The key is to find someone to help them come together as a team and to actually coach them. But that's the second piece of the whole college ecosystem at this point. You just got to get raw talent out there. Yeah, don't get you started. I feel you. Well, should we wrap this thing up? We've talked about CLOL. We even got a full CLOL discussion this week. You guys got a 2-for-1. 2-for-1 for your time invested. And the ones who came in late got to skip the play versus stuff and just go right into CLOL. Lucky people. But seriously, I appreciate everyone who stopped by, especially our new people. New people who've talked, appreciate you guys. I love everyone's thoughts and discussion around stuff. I know a lot of this week was a lot of me just talking, which I'm not a huge fan of until later on when Chu got in the chat and started talking. But overall, I thought it was a really good discussion. I will have this full episode up on YouTube in the next day or two, but then I'll have a abbreviated version with just the PlayVS stuff up in a couple days whenever I get around to it. But I really appreciate everyone for stopping by. I love these discussions. I think they're really valuable. I keep getting emails about like my videos on the budgeting stuff and the revenue analysis. And I love helping coaches who have questions with that stuff. And I really think there's value in these types of discussions. So thank you. Thank you for stopping by. You guys being here keeps me motivated on doing it. Yeah, I love Scholastic Esports, and I appreciate everyone who stops by and the work you guys put in. If you guys still have teams in playoffs or in competition, good luck. You got this. Run it back next week. Oh, so next week, my plan is to cover NECC. I know, following up on my spicy tweet I had like earlier this week, my plan is to follow up with an episode about the NECC. I'm currently formulating the questions I'm going to send to the NECC because I have to do a little bit more background work on that one since there's not an article written about it. But that's my plan, is we'll talk NECC next week. A lot of positive stuff going on with them in terms of their competition, but I want to peel back the curtain a little bit, look at their business practices if I can. And excited to have that conversation because I think it's something that needs to be had, because I think there's a lot of questions around that right now, or at least I have them. But you guys keep me motivated. I appreciate you. Keep doing what you're doing, and we will talk next week. Thank you. See ya.